Bookish friends, welcome to my February wrap-up part 1. In this video, I will first of all talk about the 5 books that I finished in the first half of February, and then talk about my progress on my Berna's Bookish bingo. In the first half of February, as I said before, I finished 5 books and DNF'd 1 book. I will talk about the books in the order that I read them. The first work that I finished in the month of February was a short story. It was called Machakasa by Alexander Pushkin. The English title of the short story is The Queen of Spades. I saw Christie, Dostoevsky in Spades, talk about this short story in one of her videos and said that it had a ghost element in it. Since I was looking for a book with a ghost story for my bookish bingo, I thought a short story would be perfect in a month full of very thick books. I listened to this short story in audio. The short story talks about a man who's very fond of gambling, as the title suggests, and his somewhat supernatural adventures about this habit of his. I like the short story. I gave it a 7 out of 10. But maybe because I had more expectations from the story, and I thought that I would be scared more, the ending was a bit of a disappointment actually. But it's still a very good psychological analysis of a very ambitious character. The second work that I finished was my Agatha Christie book of the month. It was actually a stage play, The Mousetrap. After putting it on my TBR, I watched some videos about the play and saw that it had been playing in London theatres since its initial production in 1950s. It was stopped because of the pandemic actually. In Agatha Christie's whodunit style, the guests and the owners of a motel is stuck in snowstorm, and they heard the news that a killer is on the loose. I gave this play an 8 out of 10. It was a very, very successful whodunit mystery. Like all of the plays I listened, I really enjoyed listening to it. As a production of the play, I found it to be a very solid, good mystery. The third work that I finished was a novella. It was Betrayed by Dee Henderson. I read this because it was recommended to me by my good friend Naomi at Naomi's bookshelf exactly 1 year ago. But I have to clarify that she did not recommend this novella particularly. She recommended the author of the novella, and when I saw that it was available as an audiobook in my application, I thought it was a good choice to try the writing style of the author. In this novella, a woman is falsely accused of murdering her boyfriend, and 8 years later, a former detective and her husband, who's an FBI director, find evidence that proves that she was innocent, and they offer a pardon for her. And the lives of all of the people involved are influenced by this pardon. First of all, I have to say I like the author's writing style very, very much. Initially, I did not know that it was a Christian fiction suspense, but I did not feel like I was being preached like in some of the Christian fiction works that I read very recently. I found it to be a bit easier to like the characters because of their high moral standards. On the other hand, maybe it was a novella, I don't know. The structure of the story was really weird. It had a very good, solid beginning, but in the middle parts, I felt like we were still reading the beginning, and then the book sort of ended with no climax at all. So that's why I gave this novella a 6 out of 10. And the fourth book that I tried to read was Elden, Düşme, Dünya by Wilhelm Genazino. The book had no English translation, and I have to say it's not a disadvantage for all the English readers. The copy that I had only 140 pages, and I read up to 50 pages. I could have finished the book very easily, but because I was feeling incredibly bored and sort of felt like, why am I reading this? So I decided to DNF it, although it was for our book club. The book talks about a middle-aged white man who's an architect actually, and his inner complaints about the monotony of his life, which was very disturbing to read, and also I'm not interested in any book that complains about the monotony of life and does nothing about it than to complain about that fact. So I think this book was not even worth 5 minutes of my time to waste. And then I finished the book that I was reading for almost a month, and it is also one of my yearly project books, Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I body read this book with Kim at Kim's Book Life. I had a really good body reading experience with her. She loves the book, and this is a reread for her. I did not read the book before, but I also watched the TV series before. Claire time travels back to 1743 while visiting Scotland with her husband Frank, and she finds herself in a situation where she has to make a marriage of convenience with one of the young men of Scottish clans, Jamie Fraser. I made a reading vlog of this book with spoilers, and it will be the next video that will be online in my channel. So you can learn more about my detailed feelings about some of the events that happened in the book in that vlog. But generally, even though I knew what would happen, I loved the writing style of the book. It was very vividly described, and also the characters were very, very complex. I really enjoyed the slowly progressing love story of Jamie and Claire, although it had some ethical issues associated with it, which would be actually hard to overcome, considering that I do not like cheating plots. But because of the circumstance, it did not feel like cheating to me, and the way that Diana Gabaldon wrote the progression, as I've said before, made me want to root for them. There are some scenes which are very hard to read, and it affected me emotionally in many ways. But because I especially love the character of Claire and felt emotionally connected to most of the characters, gave the book a 9 out of 10. And I cannot wait to read the second book, Dragonfly in Amber, with Kim again and Angie at Literary Labors. I think it will be a wonderful reading experience again. And the last book that I finished in the first half of February was also another body read, My Lady Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brodi, Ashton and Jodi Meadows. I body read this book with Victoria at a Musical Bookworm. The book talks about an alternative universe in which Jane Grey is not beheaded after she becomes queen for 9 days. It has some fantasy elements which I will not talk about because it was very enjoyable to read without knowing what they would be. I found the book to be surprisingly good for me. It's a young adult book, which is an age range that I'm least comfortable with. And it has some humor in it as well, which is something that I feel even less comfortable with. But in this book, because the humor sort of went towards absurdity, which is something that I like very much, I found myself laughing out loud in some parts, and most of the time chuckling at some of the inner jokes that the book has. And also the writing style of the authors were fantastic, because it was clear that they were not taking their story very seriously. On the other hand, the book had very good messages towards young adult readers. Without talking about the religion aspect, which is a very touchy subject to talk about to young adult readers who can be fanatical, they made up another conflict and gave their message of being more tolerant and less prejudiced towards people with other characteristics, which was a very clever move on the author's part. So with all of these things combined, I gave the book a high 8 out of 10. I have to say, the body reading experience made me enjoy the book much more. Victoria loved the book. It was wonderful to hear her uplifting voice and her laughs while talking about the book. Thank you, Victoria. I cannot wait to body read another book with you. In the second part of this wrap-up video, I will briefly talk about my progress on my 3 months bookish bingo card. I managed to put all of the 5 books that I finished in one of the prompts. I read Queen of Spades for the prompt of a ghost story. For a book featuring a pet on the cover, although my ebook copy did not have this cover, there was another cover with horse on the cover. So I used my Lady Jane for that prompt. For the prompt of a favorite author, I used The Mousetrap by Agatha Christie. Yeah, I mean, Agatha Christie is my favorite author, so there was no argument about that. For a book with a TV series adaptation, I used Outlander because, as I mentioned before, I already watched the adaptation. Lastly, for a booktuber recommendation book, I used Betrayed by Dee Henderson because although the novella itself was not recommended, the author was recommended to me by Naomi at Naomi's bookshelf. So it fitted the prompt. So those were all the books that I finished in the first half of February. So please comment down below. Did you read any of the books that I mentioned in this video? And what did you think about them? What was the best book that you read in February so far? I really would like to know and take more recommendations from you. If you're a new viewer, first of all, welcome. Please like and subscribe. Hope to see you very soon. Bye. As for Turkish word of the day, since the play Mousetrap has a world record of the longest running play, I thought Mousetrap should be the word of the day. Mousetrap means fare kapanı in Turkish, and fare kapanı are our Turkish words of the day. Have a good day.